What we're going to do this morning is we're going to have a quick look at the new GP 2018 release and the new features and functionalities that have been included with it. This way here, if you are thinking about upgrading to a later version of GP over the next few months, this will give you an idea of some of the new features that you can look forward to, depending on which version you're going to be upgrading from. We'll have a quick revision of the GP roadmap that Microsoft have put out lately. Then we'll have a quick overview of the platform and system-wide changes that are in GP 2018, Workflow 4 update that's been included, changes to the user experience, and then we'll jump into GP 2018 itself, and we'll have a bit of a deep dive into this new functionality. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please hold on to them for the moment, and at the end of this demonstration, we'll have a Q&A session for you. The current GP roadmap that Microsoft has released has new releases scheduled for the later part of calendar year 2018, probably in the December timeframe. There'll be GP 2019, tentatively called, being released. And in about a year's time after that, December 2019, there'll be another new release coming out. The new release scheduled for December is going to contain top feature requested by customers, and the feature the following year after that will probably be very similar, but being 2 years away, there's still a lot of secrecy about what they're going to be holding, including into that newer release. Unofficially, there's plans for a new release to be coming out for GP every year till at least 2023 and probably beyond that. So plenty of life left in GP as far as Microsoft is concerned. Now, with the new GP 2018 release, there's been a number of changes. With platform and system-wide changes, Microsoft have now released functionality where your login is remembered when you go into System Manager. A really nice feature, because that's been really annoying that you have to put in your System Manager password all the time. And there's been some updates to our comprehensive document attachment, and as I said, we'll jump in and have a look at that in more detail later. There's been updates made to Workflow 4. You can now generate off reminder emails from your workflows. You can copy workflow steps. There's now some new reporting for workflow. Within the workflows you set up for payables transactions, there's now additional fields that you can include in. There's additional messages that you can generate out for purchase order workflows. There's now an EFT vendor approval workflow. And there's new workflows for new accounts, receiving transactions, and purchase order invoices. There are some enhancements to the user experience. There's going to be additional sorting options available in GP 2018. You now can have unique passwords for individual smart list favorites. There's going to be a smart list shortcut on the web client itself, and autocomplete is now included onto the web client. With the distribution and supply chain, some of the enhancements that have been included now is that the purchase order generation list will open up with the newest purchase orders showing on that. The purchase order information displayed for requisition originator. You can now print off your purchase requisitions, and on sales transaction entry windows, you can now draw back onto the display hold status, and there's a visual cue on the transaction itself. We'll jump into GP now, and we'll have a look at all of these functions in a bit of detail. So I'll just switch over to my GP install. So the first feature we'll look at is the login is now remembered for your system password. So if I just go into admin, and as an example, we're going to set up a new user. I need to enter in my system password. And my user setup window opens up. Now, as you know, that once I've entered in my details, saved information, and closed this down, if I then went in to set up my user access, you normally have to enter in the system password again. Not any longer. As long as my session is active, the application will remember that the password has been entered, and you can open up all of the password protected windows without having to enter in the system password again. Used to be very annoying after entering that password multiple times, but now it's a one-off operation. Comprehensive document attachment. That is a function within GP where you can go through and add on or attach documents to your windows within the GP itself. So if you open up your receivables transaction entry window as an example, populate a document, Depending on the graphic settings of your computer, you'll see either a paperclip option on the taskbar up here, or you can click on this and you'll have an attach option. You can select that to come through and attach documents to the document that you're putting into GP. Two ways you can go around this. You can choose to scan the document in from a scanner that you do have on in your operation. So I can choose a scanner and go OK. Then I can go through and choose to scan the document into the form, or I can choose to manually go through and select the document and attach it to the invoice that I'm trying to set up. Once it's attached, you can go through and you can actually preview it. And review, so you can review your document and then you can save it. Okay, they can be PDF documents, they can be Word documents, they can be maps, they can be images, they can be whatever you require to attach to the form itself. All right, mouse is playing up. Once you've made the attachment, again, the note field is filled up, and so you can tell that there's an attachment to the document. You can put it to transactional windows. You can also attach it to master files. So if you come into data maintenance, as I mentioned, you now have that attach option. So again, once you bring in some information, you can go through and choose to attach a document to the record. Now, on some windows, rather than having an icon on the taskbar that you can choose to select, it's going to be on the notepad itself. If you go into the note, you'll have the icon here, which you can select, which again will allow you to go through and use the document attachment feature to bring a document across over onto your record. And it's populating, of course, when I choose cancel, I'm choosing to cancel linking to a scanner, but the form will still open up so I can manually add a document to it. Now, these updates to the document attachment have been made to a number of windows. For the transaction entry, they've been added to the general ledger transaction entry window, the receivables transaction entry window, and the asset general information window in fixed assets. For your inquiry windows, it's also been added to customer inquiry, the vendor inquiry, the project inquiry, and the project maintenance card. So they all now have the document attach feature added to them. Workflow. There's been changes made to the workflow in GP 2018. They've now introduced, or Microsoft have now introduced, Workflow version 4. And this has brought through a few new capabilities to us within Workflow itself. One of the new features that have been included within the Workflow is that you can generate off reminder emails. So on your workflows, once you've set them up, you can choose to generate out a reminder email on a schedule, be it based on number of hours, number of days, or number of weeks. And you can then choose to attach a message to it so that can then be generated off to the notified users. And you can choose to, if you want, to include document attachment documents. Another new feature is that you now have the function where you can go through and you can copy off vendor workflow steps. So again, this can help you speed up the setting up of workflows because you can then copy steps over and edit them as required. And it's a fairly simple process. You just select the step that you wish to copy and select the copy button. Give it the new step. You can mark to include some steps if you like. and then choose copy. So I've already started cooking this one previously, as they say on the television programs, but I've just made a new step now. So we now have a 3-step workflow. We can then edit each step to our requirements. There's now a new report for workflow. And it's the workflow history report. And from this, we can then generate a report that will show us the history of all the workflows that we have put through to date. Now I'm using a shotgun approach and showing all workflows, but you can, of course, edit it to show workflows within the date range if you so wish. It will show the workflow steps, the originator, who approved it, the dates that each step was completed. And if there was a problem and it was rejected, it will tell you that it was rejected as well. And also tell you when a purchase order has been generated off from a purchase order workflow. Not about the report. It's a quick way you can just run through and see what the status of your workflow operations are and if there's any outstanding documents that need to be completed. Jump back into workflow again. And with our payables transactions workflow, we have some new fields available for us. Now to access these new fields, you need to come through and access the workflow condition editor and mark to show the display extended field list. With that enabled, you can now choose to include with the workflow your vendor master account number, your vendor master comments 1 and 2, your payment priorities, and your vendor class ID. There's now new messages assigned to purchase order workflows. So there's now a new one for purchase order receivings and purchase requisition approvals, amongst others. Now with the vendor approval workflow, again, they've added some new fields to it where you can start to include, or where you can include the EFT information. So again, if we need to enable displayed extended field list, but then when we come into here, we can see the EFT information for the vendor. And we can start to include them onto our workflows. There's now new workflows being included for the creation of general ledger accounts. So general ledger account approval, purchasing receivings transactions, and purchasing invoices. So there's been a few new changes made to workflow to increase its functionality. It actually makes it pretty punky. User experience updates. There's been a few changes made to the user experience within GP itself. There are now some additional sorting options. So if we go into sales, we go to the inquiry by debtor or customer. We now have a sorting option where we can choose to sort by type. Transaction by document. The new options are to choose by document number, document amount, amount remaining, or document date. So that does help go through and filter out the data that we want to see within the form. Similarly, with payables, there's been updates made to the filtering options. For a vendor transaction inquiry, you can do it by document number. And with Payables transaction inquiry, you can choose to do it by type, by originating amount, by unapplied amount as well. And in the bank reconciliation window, I like this one, you can choose to filter in the bank reconcile bank statement window. Not just by type or date, but whether it's a payment or a deposit. Smart List. There's been a change made to Smart List in terms of Smart List favorites. Now when you choose to save a favorite, you can enter in an individual password for each favorite for each user, rather than a generic password that all users would need to access their favorites. So that's a bit of an enhancement there. Now, a couple of changes made to the web client, which unfortunately I can't show you live. But on the web client itself, there's now been a link to take you directly to Smart List. So it can speed up accessing Smart List within the web client itself. And if you're doing bank reconciles on the web client, you now have the ability where you can expand the select bank transactions window to fill the whole page, so that you can see more transactions and speed up the tick and flick process when you're doing your reconcile. Now, there's been a number of enhancements made to Power Suite or within GP itself. OData service has been updated to OData version 4. Now, the setup configuration will be the same, but the updated protocol is going to give you better performance, which you can now filter and page client requests. You should then experience for your timeout errors, which is going to give you a better experience all around. Now, later on in the year, Microsoft is going to be releasing a Power BI contact pack, and that's going to feature sample reports for financials, sales, purchasing, and inventory data. Now, each report utilizes relationships built between GP tables and various fields that can be used to display the information that you require. You can also review the calculated columns as examples for including transactions on your Power BI reports, such as net debit and credit, profit, item sales reports. Just jump back into GP. Back in sales, and we'll have a look at some of the enhancements we're doing tagged in the financial series. Now, if we go to our debit card, we now have the ability to generate a statement from the debit card itself. So if we choose the print button, we can then choose to print a statement. This window will then open up. We can choose the paper, the document format that we wish to use. And once we've selected our document format, it will then use that format setup that we've set up in our statement setup. We then choose to print it to screen, and if we want to, we can then send it to the customer as well. So it's a quick way of sending a customer a copy of their current statement. If they ring up and say they haven't received it, and you can do it in this way, rather than going through and reprinting the statement, so the reprint statement functionality. It gives you options that you can use. We now go to Payables. Oh, I need your glasses. We now have an option on whether we make a payment, a single payment per creditor or a single payment per invoice when we do a check or a payment run for the customer. Now, the default is going to be a single payment per creditor, but you can, of course, come in here and change it to be per invoice, depending on what you would like them to use. The other change that you'll be noticed is that the number of the forms relating to check runs or check transactions have now been renamed, because there's so many options now of making payments to customers, not just checks. You can do an EFT run, you can do a credit card run, whatever, rather than now calling check transaction windows, check, they've now been renamed to be payment. So your bill payables check batches is now bill payments. You can now do an edit payment batch rather than do an edit check batch. Edit vendor payment rather than doing edit vendor check. Print payments rather than print checks. Post payments rather than post checks. Functionality has not changed. The windows look pretty well the same, but the label has changed on them. Analytical accounting. There's been a slight change made to analytical accounting in relation to user access. You now have the ability you can copy user access from one user to another. So if you have, say, a dummy user set up with all the required access needed for certain roles, you can then use dummy user or real user if it is, and copy the access from the new users that you set up within AA itself. So the updates to distributions and supply chain. Using purchase requisitions, and you've approved the requisition. When you generate a purchase order, the purchase order list will then open up showing only the purchase orders linked to that requisition. So I'll select the purchase order that we've got in the system, which has been approved. We'll choose to purchase it. It's all correct. So we will then generate and then once the purchase order is generated, the list will then open up showing the purchase orders related that we just generated. List open, but it didn't list by purchase order, but that's okay. If we go to the home page, our requisitions list will now show the purchase order number on it once a purchase order has been generated. If we go back to requisitions, we're now able to print off our purchasing requisitions. If we go to sales transaction entry, we're now able to see holds that are on our documents on the front form. And we can drill back to the hold from here. And then we can go through and remove it, add an additional hold if we wanted to, and continue on.